just north of 1832.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to the York County History Center. My name is Jamie Norfeld. Tonight's presentation is called The Other Side of the River, the Similarities that York and Lancaster Share. If you were here for that presentation, tune back in about 15 minutes because we have some updates before that. So this is a part of the York County History Center's Writers Roundtable. It's a group of fellow historians and researchers, and we get together and talk about what we're doing. This is a network for people to collaborate and share and frankly help each other out and just share the love of history. So the first person up to speak is going to be Nicole Smith. She is a part of the History Center and she's going to give us an update on what's going on here. I'm sure you don't have tons of updates. There's always stuff going on here.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. Just a couple of announcements before we get started, and a reminder that this program is being recorded and will be available on the York County History Center YouTube channel. We have a bunch of upcoming programs, but just to highlight, on June 10th, our second Saturday speaker will be Jamie Norfeld.
That's me.
Our very own, speaking about Penny Heaven and the City Cemetery. On June 11th, our South Central Pennsylvania Genealogy Society program is Unearthing Camp Security with John Cromer. On June 14th, we have a new program called Hidden Histories. It's about David Etter Small, an advocate for freedom seekers. The speaker is Guy Dunham, and the place is going to be First Presbyterian Church. These programs are going to be at different places throughout the community and not here at the History Center. And then our June 21st Civil War Roundtable program is telling York County's full Civil War story at last with Jim LaCour. So yeah, look forward to all those programs. And for everyone here and online, if you want more information or to register, please visit yorkhistorycenter.org. Thank you.
Before, and just want to say a couple things. This is the time during our roundtable where we have folks making their pitch. But before we do that, I just want to kind of set the scene a little bit. I think in the last 15 years, it's been more productive back and forth. York County is going over Lancaster County, and vice versa. You know, the York County is going over the Northwest River Trail, the middle of low grade, and Lidditz, trips to Lidditz and Everett and so on. But at the same time, maybe it's overlooked. The Lancaster County folks are coming over here to go to the Horn Farm, the Wizard Ranch, some of the new state park that's just come on board, and eventually the Mifflin House. So there's a lot of back and forth that most people will agree. In fact, the Writers Roundtable has tried to foster that by this program tonight. Corey and Donnie's program tonight will be the third that we've sponsored, where we have brought in Lancaster County speakers and trying to talk about the connectedness between the counties. Adam Zern from Uncharted Lancaster was here about a year ago, and Heather Kenny's from the Lancaster Historical Society was here before that. And there's an interesting stats kind of to back up what I said about this back and forth across the river that's going on. Abby Tiefert from the Susquehanna Heritage gave these stats. At the Zimmerman Center, 32% of the Zimmerman Center sign-ins are from York County, 24% from Lancaster County, and 45% are from 50 miles or more. So you can see that this Zimmerman Center is a little hard to get to, so people are getting to it from the other side of the river, from the side of the river, and from beyond. And in terms of the river cruises on Chief Uncas last year, they topped 1,100 folks that came into Long Level to board the the excursion craft that's there, the new excursion craft. That's only a partial seating. So, and out of that number, 35% from York County, 22% from Lancaster County, and 43% from 50 miles and beyond. So, people are finding the other bank of the other county very nicely here. So I just wanted to put out those stats, and I think it sets the stage for our little lively exchange that's going to come in about 5 minutes. But before that, anybody want to pitch your project? Okay, Dennis. This is part of Rogers Roundtable where people share what they're working on, so all yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dennis Ness. I wrote this book, The Militia of the County of York. And please buy my book. It's online, Amazon, etc. Recently, my publisher approached me about doing a documentary about this. And we were discussing different things. I said, it's a good idea to do that. York County is a prime example of what could happen. I discussed Hamilton, if everybody's familiar with what they do in the musical world. That's a play about back in the day of 1776 under Hamilton. We talked about screen scripts and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what we're going to do, but that's where I'm at on that part. Next, I've been working on a database, which I mentioned in here. I've been trying to get a database of everybody that was in the York County area for a lot of different reasons. I have all of the officers and the associators and the militia from 1774 to 1785, and all of the units that's available online and whatever. I've been doing that for about 3 years, and to bring along the situation about history, etc. I don't know if people realize it or not, but in 1774 is when things started in York County. Well, if you do the math, in 2024, it's 250 years that this thing started. In 1776 would be 2026 for independence. 1775, we had our first people go to the siege of Boston and etc. And the people in York County have been involved in everything from 1774 to 1785. I think that we should have projects that are going into the county. I don't know. I'm not one of the powers to be and the movers and shakers, and I'm a retired guy on fixed income, so that's not going to happen. I've written a paper just recently that was on the. I'm also a contributing writer to Journal of the American Revolution, and I put a article in there about the economics, how taxes were paid during the Revolutionary War. We say, well, why is that interesting? Well, there's been a change in the world about getting into institutions like the Daughters of American Revolution, the Sons of American Revolution, and the Society of Cincinnati. If your family was in York County during this period and was in the militia and paid taxes, you now can join those organizations and whatever goes along with that. I say that there was roughly about 20,000 people in York County at that time. Can you imagine how many families that would be of the percent that were original Americans, if I could say that? What else is, and I've been working on a lot of items in that period. I hope to get more things done. I'm working with the young lady in the back to find more information. I'm going to try and get as much information as I can, and I might even publish it someday if I get enough time. I thank you.
Yeah, the History Center is working on the 250th in 2026, and I visited a meeting the other day with some of the staff at the History Center, and also the city is getting a committee and the county is getting a committee. So those are underway, those efforts are underway, and that time will go fast, that's for sure. So who else would like to share? Tom?
Yeah, I'm Tom Gingling with the Cadores Valley Area Historical Society. We're located in Jefferson, which is south of Spring Grove. This coming Sunday, we're going to have our monthly open to the public, and so we'll be open from 1 to 4. We're located at 48 Baltimore Street in Jefferson. If you use a GPS, you'll have to plug in Spring Grove because GPS doesn't recognize Jefferson. And so we can do that. We're having our other general meeting on Tuesday. That's a strawberry and ice cream social, sort of limited as to who come. If you want to come, you'll have to contact me. You can contact me through Facebook, Friends of Cadores Valley Area Historical Society. And then next month, we're going to have Charles Stanwell, who will be there to talk about the Forest Park and the trolleys that went there. So that'll be coming up in July. So with that, we're working on a lot of different things there, doing some research, continuing to collect data on log structures within our area that we represent, and also just there again some numerous other projects. So thank you.
Hey, anyone else? Stephen Smith.
Hi, I'm Stephen Smith. I have a couple talks coming up that I work on in between my Smith family research, which is kind of picking up here in the summer months. The first one is History Night in Springersbury. That will be at the meeting room of the Firehouse on Commons Drive at 7 o'clock on July 11th. I'll talk about the highlights over the past 100 years of recreation and entertainment, Springersbury. So again, that's on July 11th. And then on Saturday, July 15th at noon, I'm one of the speakers at the 4-day National Convention of Watch and Clock Collectors, which meets at the Marriott Convention Center in downtown Lancaster. I'll be talking on the tales of the historic Isaiah Lucan's Tower Clock Works, which was the tower clock works that were in 2 York County courthouses from 1847 to 1957. And then on Saturday, August 12th, I'll be the speaker at the second Saturday talk here in this room. I'll be talking on the origins of mechanical cooling. That's a non-technical talk that deals with stories of the people that developed mechanical cooling from the mid 1700s to the mid 1900s. And then on the last one is Saturday, September 23rd. I'll be doing my 3rd Yorkshire History Walk. I have some new items that grew out of questions and comments during the 2nd history walk that I did. And that will be, like I said, September 23rd at 3 o'clock, meeting in the parking lot of the Yorkshire Elementary School. That walk is growing from 50 people, I think, at the first walk to about 100 people in the second walk. People are coming in from miles around for the next talk, and Brenda Neff is the coordinator of that walk. So hope to see you then.
Thank you all. Anyone have anything else? Okay, Jamie, you will introduce the speakers.
All right, so tonight, I'm very excited about this presentation, partly because a couple of weeks ago, Dami and I filmed an episode of our video series called Hometown History. And in it, I said a dirty word. It's the L word. It's Lancaster. And Corey clubbed me out on mine. He said, "You've got to dig at Lancaster." And I said, "Corey, I'm sorry. It comes from a deep-seated jealousy because of how amazing Lancaster is. But seriously, there has been this divide between our 2 counties. I didn't go across the river very much as a kid, but tonight's presentation is about showing how similar they are and some of the uniting factors. So without any more hesitation here, let me introduce our speakers. So we got Corey Van Broekhoven, and he is the author of several local history books and serves as the president of the Lidditz Historical Foundation. He also runs a Facebook group called Remember When in Lidditz. Dominish Marie Miller, who is a good friend of mine and neighbor, is a 3rd Circuit Court of Appeals librarian for the Middle District of Pennsylvania and the founder of Preserving the History of Newburytown. She's the author of 2 cookbooks, Preserving the History of Newburytown, a community cookbook from the Cooks of Newburytown, Pennsylvania, 2021, volumes 1 and 2. She's also a volunteer library assistant at Redland Community Library. She is a reenactor for the 87th Regiment in the Pennsylvania Volunteer Infantry, and she portrays a private in the 87th PA company scene. All right, guys, all yours.
So yeah, I'm definitely outnumbered tonight. So I'm just gonna face facts here. Thanks for having me. This is really fun, and this is actually, she'll tell you this too. This is the third time we've done this program. We're doing it again in Lancaster in October. So those that are keeping track, it's 2 in Lancaster and 2 in York by the time October rolls around. So we put this together maybe about 2 years, a little less than 2 years ago, and obviously we've had a lot of fun with it, and we hope you enjoy it as well. So as you see, the title here, the other side of the river, and that could mean either Lancaster or York, depending on where you're from. The similarities that Lancaster and York share, not the differences, but the similarities, okay?
Right.
And so we're just gonna jump right into it here. So let's start with foundings of the counties. Okay, so Lancaster County is slightly older by about 20 years, known as the Red Rose City. York 1749, the White Rose City. And I'm not going to read every single panel here. You guys can do that on your own. But just a little history about the counties, how they were formed. And of course, very similarities, a lot of similarities between our 2 counties. One being Lancaster was capital for a day, and York was capital for more than a day. So that's one up for Lancaster, for York. So yeah. It's not a competition. Okay, yeah, so these are some of the earliest images. The one there on the bottom right is supposed to be the oldest known photograph of Lancaster, but if you look at that date, 1845, I have some pretty high suspicions that the date's probably off by about, probably at least 10 years. But anyway, that is the old courthouse there in the center, looking straight down there. And above that is 19th century view of Lancaster City. And that's, you can see town was starting to form. And here, again, on the bottom slide, you're seeing colonial structures, and the rest is history. 1845, William Wagner opened York's very first studio, and here's an 1852 map of that, and produced just a beautiful painting there of some different historic buildings and some landscape there.
Okay, so we have a rich history with the Native Americans on both sides of the river. So that's Lancaster County and York County. And the Susquehanna tribes moved into the Susquehanna Valley circa 1550. And they were both located in Lancaster and York, among other counties. And they were known as giant-head people and thus attired. And that's why in this illustration, you'll see that this person appears a lot larger than your average person. But I think if you were a white person from Europe that was coming to the New World and you've never seen Native Americans before, they might be intimidating. You might have heard things about them larger than life folklore. So I think that's why they thought they were so large and looming. Now, whether they were or not, I can't tell you, but they did appear to be a little larger than the average person. And then there were multiple tribes in the area. There were the Susquehannocks, the Shawnees, the Conestogas, the Nanticokes, and these people lived in Lancaster County at the time, and that was between 1650 and 1750, and there was about 10 tribes at the time. And then you can see a plaque there in Lancaster, and that's talking about the Conestoga Indian tribe. And then we have the Susquehannocks, the Shawnee, and the Algonquins, and they lived along the shores of the Susquehanna River in southern York County. And this is probably a very recognizable picture if you've ever been to the Indian Steps Museum. So I'd highly recommend visiting Indian Steps in York County if you haven't already. But you can see there they have Native American artifacts, and the entire house really is decorated as a museum that you can walk through and learn about Native American life in York County. And then we have the Moravian life. So the Moravian faith was brought to the US by Count Nicholas Ludwig von Zinderdorf. Zindendorf, I apologize. And there were 2 churches in York, and there were 2 churches in Lancaster County. And then, of course, we have the Tannenberg organ. So David Tannenberg, And he was the organ manufacturer for the colonies at the time. And we're in the York County History Center tonight, and they have a Tannenberg organ. It's not here in person. It was disassembled. You can watch the video online on their Facebook page. And we kind of got a little inside scoop from Nicole earlier. And she was telling us that they have a time-lapse video of them disassembling it, sort of like a barn, how they just take it piece by piece and they number it and mark it, and then it is reassembled somewhere in a workshop where they're going to restore it. And it's not coming back to this building, it's going to go in the new steam plant building. So instead of bringing it back here and reassembling it, they're just going to wait until the new History Center opens at the new campus, and they're going to reassemble it there. So the David Tannenberg organ is from 1804, and that's the one that would be in this building. And there you can see that there are 9, and 1 is here at the History Center, and then there's 2 at the Lidditz Moravian Church, so we don't want to leave Lancaster out of the conversation, of course.
All right, so moving on, Susquehanna River now, or as we like to say, a bridge divides us. Points to ponder about the Susquehanna River, which you may not be aware of. It's the longest river on the East Coast. It's Lancaster County owns the river, but how many knew that? Okay, I'm sure, right. The river predates the Atlantic Ocean, and it's the time reduced the river to shallow conditions. It's actually the longest unnavigable river. Again, I'm sure you're aware of. All right, so next slide. A little bit more here on the Susquehanna. Getting back to the slide we just saw. Who owns the Susquehanna River, York County or Lancaster County? Here's some information on that, and that's the bridge along the Lincoln Highway. That picture was actually taken in Columbia. Maybe some of you have been there, but Columbia Rexville Bridge is what's pictured there. Okay, all right.
Okay, and then if you do venture out into the river, you're going to discover petroglyphs. So these are on the Lancaster County side, and that's south of Safe Harbor and the Susquehanna River. And these are considered prehistoric archaeological site. So you can take kayak tours, which actually there is a book by Neil King Jr. that we just covered on Hometown History, and it's called American Ramble. And my book club at work just read it. So a few of the people from work and I are going to take Adam Zern's kayak tour. We're going to go out and see the petroglyphs for ourselves because it's talked about in the book. So we're really excited about that. But on these kayak tours, you can go out and you're going to see these ancient rock carvings that are carved into the stone. And they're Native American art carvings, and they take sponges with water and they put it on the rock, and that's how the images really come to life, because you can see them, but until you get them wet, you can't really see the lines very distinctly. And they're at least 1,000 years old. So you can imagine, I mean, something that's 1,000 years old that you can just kayak out there and touch it and look at it for yourself, which is really amazing. But it's only accessed by water. So you can go on these tours, or I mean, you can go on a self-guided tour. I think Jamie said she paddleboarded out to that, which I would not suggest doing. Please, safety first, everybody.
Life jacket.
Okay, she said she's already life jacket. Not sure, but yeah. So maybe take someone with you. A buddy system is a great way to do these petroglyphs, but it's really something to behold. And yeah, so. Then we have cryptids. So I thought this was something fun. I suggested that we include this in our talk. So how many of you know about the albatwitch in Lancaster County? So it can be called the apple snitch or the apple witch. So then albatwitch. So most sightings have been near Chickies Rock in Lancaster County, and he's supposed to be about 3 to 5 feet tall. You can see he's a hairy little guy. That would scare me if I was out at night in the woods of Lancaster County and he was coming toward me, but you're in luck if you have apples because that's his favorite food. So I'm picturing people throwing apples to get him away from you. And they actually have a festival, a day that takes place in Columbia every October to celebrate this, guys. And then not to be outdone, York, we have Bigfoot. So how many of you know that we have Bigfoot in York County? Yeah, so this is the Farm and Natural Land Trust of York County hosts an annual Sasquatch Preservation Fair Run. So Sasquatch and Bigfoot are the same guy. And he dresses up, I assume that he volunteers for the Farm Trust. And he shows up to the 5K every year.
And he'll hide in the woods, he'll take pictures with you, he'll chase you around. So he is there, and then there's also a Mount Wolf Sasquatch 5K trail run. Now, I don't know if he actually chases you through that one. I couldn't really find pictures of that particular Sasquatch. He's a little more elusive. But scientists actually believe that the reason we see Bigfoot so often in York County is because it's actually a black bear. We're not really seeing Bigfoot, we're just seeing this bear, he's standing up on his hind legs, but I like to think that Bigfoot's out there somewhere. You never know, it'd be kind of cool.
And like the joke goes, maybe Bigfoot is just blurry, that's why there's so many. That's why you can't catch them, right? So moving on, of course, we couldn't talk about the Lancaster to York connection without talking about the Lincoln Highway. And Tom Davidson was gonna try to be here tonight. And I'm sure many of you know Tom, he's like the Lincoln Highway guru of York County. Some information there. We saw the one picture earlier about the Columbia-Wrightsville Bridge. Very important transportation place, going up and down, and familiar with the markers, which we'll get to here on the program. And fun fact, again, probably most of you know this, next month, they're going to be putting a big marker out at the Shoe House. Were you all aware of that? Okay. So, Columbia, there's still a marker, and really an important thoroughfare. So, as I just said, there's 4 Lincoln Highway markers that still exist across York and Lancaster. Unfortunately, Lancaster does not have any remaining markers, well, actually, Lancaster, Columbia, right on the edge, along the Lincoln Highway near 3rd Street, and I'm sure you have all seen that. Tom Davidson and Ben Weber have done a great job putting awareness signs out there in recent months. So that's the one in Lancaster. Now in York, there's more than one. 1341 West Market Street in front of the fire department, which you can visit. You can also visit the one in Columbia. You can take photographs with it. And one more here, Paradise Township, that one is on private property. So, please don't take your picture next to that without getting approval from the landowner. All right, and Pelham Township near Duckstown Road as well. And I heard this one wasn't in the best of condition. Can anyone speak to that?
It's still good.
It is good, okay, all right. Okay, so who knew that York County was the snack capital of the world? Many, of course. I've got a captive audience, yeah, for sure. So yeah, indeed it is. So moving here, who knew that we were actually in the pretzel belt? Yes, that is a thing, okay? It's a concentration of many snack food companies in central southeast region of Pennsylvania. And of course, pretzels, Dutch country, the German influence here. It's no surprise that pretzels are so popular. 1861 in Lidditz, Pennsylvania, Julius Sturgis opens America's very first commercial pretzel bakery. Now there were pretzels being baked before that, but he really ran with the idea. He became very, very wealthy, and I'm sure probably many of you, I know Brenda has gone to Sturgis, twisted the pretzel. It's still a very, very popular tourist attraction in Lancaster. They like to get their picture taken next to the giant pretzel. All right.
And then my personal favorite, chocolate. So for 24 years of my life, and I'm 29 now, I was allergic to chocolate. So the second that I could start eating chocolate, I went to town. So Wilbur Buds began in Philadelphia, and then they moved to Lidditz. And I think Wilbur Buds are synonymous with Lidditz. If you talk to people from the area and you ask them what their favorite chocolate is, they're going to say Wilbur Buds. So they started in the early 1900s. And then in 2022, I'm sorry, they're no longer made in Lidditz. I know, it's horrible, but the town continues to produce Wilbur chocolate in bulk. But the original building was saved and restored, and you can see there is a picture of it. And they have a great little ghost sign, which Jamie and I just talked about on our last episode of Hometown History. And Corey was telling me over dinner that one of the first things they did when they were revitalizing this building was they repainted the sign and brought it back to its former glory. So I think that's great. But unfortunately, the last time Corey and I had this talk around the Redland Community Library, And that night when we went home on the news, this building caught fire. So thankfully, the building was able to be saved. There's apartments upstairs and then there's businesses on the bottom. And as far as I know, the restaurant on the bottom is still closed because of smoke and fire damage. I assume that some of the restaurants that, or some of the apartments that were farther away from the smoke and fire damage are still being lived in and used, but eventually that will open. So it's nice to see them preserving this historic building and using it. And then the candy in York, so not to be outdone by the Wilbur Butts, we have Wolfgang candy, and that was founded in 1921 by Delphi Eli and Nima May Wolfgang. And the business was run out of their home in York before they became a big corporation and went large with it.
All right, so now we're at New Year's Eve. Many towns drop interesting things. Mechanicsburg drops the wrench, on and on and on. In Lancaster, we have dropped the red rose for many, many years. The rose has been dropped actually since 2007. It actually replaced another rose that was falling apart. So the picture you see there on the left is actually the most recent rose. And of course, it makes perfect sense. On New Year's Eve, York drops the white rose, okay? It drops in Continental Square in York. There's also fireworks and music. And like in Lancaster, there's food trucks and fun celebration. So I think it's fun. I mean, you talk about the white rose and the red rose city, even right down to the New Year's Eve celebrations.
Truly a world.
Yeah, that's right. We both have fire and ice festivals. The one in Lancaster is held in Lidditz, and it's been held in February since 2006. Has grown to a 10-day event in recent years. Thousands of people flock to the town. They close the street. It's a big party. York has their own fire and ice festival, featuring a 40-foot ice slide, 20 sculptures, and multiple musical acts. And like the Lidditz Fire and Ice Festival, musical acts also in Lidditz, food trucks, and a lot of fun. So, you know, it's not only a great time to come out and see the ice sculptures, but the thing is, they have these, you know, in the winter where the retailers, that's traditionally their slowest months. And that's why Lidditz actually started to have theirs in the winter to give them a nice shot in the arm in the retail industry.
Now we're going to talk about the Underground Railroad. So we're going to start in New York for this. And Harriet Tubman visited a farm in Newbury Township because she actually worked with the Underground Railroad. And there was a free Black family that lived in Newbury Town, the Baptist family. And they had a farm in Newbury Town, and Harriet Tubman spent the night there. So that's our little claim to fame in New York with our Underground Railroad. And I also have a picture of one of Scott Mingus's books. He is our go-to guide for York County Underground Railroad information. So if you go to any of the local libraries, you can go on Amazon and you can buy Scott's books. And I believe he has two that talk about the Underground Railroad. I only have a picture of one. But it also thrived in Columbia, Lancaster County, and in 1838, privately owned rail cars were used to transport freedom seekers. So York and Lancaster counties were a safe haven for the free Blacks that came up from Maryland and the lower southern states. So they would work their way up through Lancaster and York on their way to freedom. They'd either continue to New York, Canada, and these people were risking their lives to save these people and help them along the way. So that was very prevalent throughout the history of Lancaster and York County. And then here we have the rail car, so you can see an example of that, and they were modified with special compartments, and that's how they hid the people that they were transporting. So, you know, this was something that they really had to do under the cover of night in most cases, hide them in the cars, and I'm sure it wasn't something that was very comfortable or easy to do, but they did it anyways. So it's really nice to know that York and Lancaster put their stamp on history that way and for such a good cause. And now we're going to talk about the oldest houses in both the county.
So starting with Lancaster County, you see here 1719, the Hans Herr House, which was an early Mennonite home. You can tour that seasonally. You can take a tour of that. They also have a Native American longhouse they built there in recent years. It really is a neat structure to take a look at. If you go to the next slide. Oh, yeah, also the oldest Mennonite meeting house in America. Obviously, there's a nice concentration of Mennonite faith here in both York and Lancaster County. And this surprised me when we were putting this program together. I was not aware that the Hans Her House was the oldest Mennonite meeting house in America.
And of course, not to be outdone, we have to talk about York's oldest houses. So the Golden Cloud Tavern, the Hope House, and the Hammersley Strominger House. So we're going to start with the Golden Cloud Tavern, and of course, we are here at the York History Center, and the Cloud Tavern is part of the campus for the History Center. So that was built in 1741, and it contains a wood shingled roof, which was rare for the time in America. And then the Hope House. So if you know anything about the controversy that's happening right now with the Hope House, we're not really sure if it's going to be standing much longer. Rudders owns the property, and there are different schematics that show the Hope House still standing, and then there are some that show the Hope House no longer standing. So there are people trying to actively save the house. But for right now, it was built in 1750 and into the early 1800s, and it functioned as a tavern along the pioneering Monocacy Road. So when you go into town, this is really the first thing you see. And today it's Route 116, and it's the main road leading from York through Spring Grove, Hanover, and one to Gettysburg. So personally, I would love to see the Hope House remain standing. Whether that's possible financially and logistically, I'm not sure, but you can look up articles. This is a picture from WJL8. A lot of the newspapers and news stations have covered the story, and there's a grassroots effort to raise money to save the building. But this is what it looks like right now. And then there's the Hammersley Strominger House, and that was built in 1790, and it was added to the National Register of Historic Places in 1978. And I really wanted to highlight this because this house belonged to my third great grandparents. So the Stromingers, which was the second family, and we can see that they built on the second half of the house. They were my third great grandparents, and the woman that lives there now actually contacted me through my work with preserving the history of Newburytown. She thought that maybe I was a preservationist that could come in and actually like help preserve her home, and I'm not. I don't have a degree in that, and I'm definitely not an engineer. But I helped put her in contact with different people because she was worried about the structure of the home. There's a lot of cars that go by, and sometimes they speed and the house starts to rattle a little bit. This is a really great example of late 1700s, early 1800s home construction, and it's beautiful, and they've kept it looking this way for years, as long as I can remember. It really hasn't changed. So I'm happy to know that the people that live there really want to continue to preserve the home and keep it in its glory.
Okay, notable artists in Lancaster and York. Notable artists County, New York, Lewis Miller. Young Lewis Miller enjoys his day visiting the self-sufficient Geiger family. Okay, local Union troops here on the right, training in the old York Fairgrounds in the summer of 1861 at the start of the Civil War. Beautiful artwork there, for sure. Now we get to Lancaster County. Obviously, each county has dozens of great artists, so we sort of had to narrow it down. Charles Demuth is a familiar name, I'm sure, to many of you, who lived from 1883 until 1935. His home in Lancaster is now the Demuth Museum, which you can visit. And his family also owned the oldest tobacco shop in the country. Sadly, it closed in 2010. Okay.
More competition, we have to bring it back to baseball. Okay, so Lancaster has their own minor league team, and that's the Lancaster Barnstormers, and that was founded in 2005. And they play at Clipper Magazine Stadium. And Lancaster has had 3 prominent MLB players. We have Tom Kerr, Bruce Sutter, and Gene Garber. And which was the gentleman that just passed away?
Gene Garber?
Gene Garber. I believe last time we did this presentation, we found out that Gene Garber had passed away. Well, that's amazing that a county like York can produce 3 Major League Baseball players in the know. And then not to be outdone, we have York, and we have the York Revolution, and that was established in 2006, so only 1 year after Lancaster. So you beat us on that one, congratulations. And it was People's Bank Park, but this year it became Wellspan Park. And that was as recently as February 2003 that happened. And then we have a picture of Cannonball Charlie. Anytime there would be a home run, he would set off the cannon, but Cannonball Charlie has retired. So we are looking for our new cannonball, Charlie. So I'm interested to see what name the new Cannoneer is going to take on. And then we had our own Major League Baseball star, and that is Greg Gross, and he is a son of Goldsboro, and I'm from Newburytown, so Goldsboro is right next door. And this is the sign that welcomes you to Goldsboro. It's a little dilapidated, and unfortunately, about 2 months ago, I assume it was some teenagers defaced the sign and took it down, which is horrible, and I'm very upset about it. But Goldsboro has raised money. We're gonna get a new, even better sign, and we're gonna put it back up, so it could be a sign that Greg Gross is proud of. And then we have our new star, Benny Montgomery. He graduated from Redland High School, and he went very early on in the draft, and he's going to the Rockies. And as far as I know, he's working his way up in the minor leagues right now and doing a great job. And then our biggest claim to fame in York County as far as baseball goes is the Redland Little League team. So this was a story that just took the entire county and central Pennsylvania, for that matter, by storm. So the Little League World Series was in 2015, and they ended up being the US champs, and they were so sad when they lost the final game to Japan, but they really did do an amazing job, and they really brought the community together. And there was a book written about the boys, and it was Boys in the Field, a championship journey from Redland to Williamsport. And for a time, there was a man that came into town and he said he was going to make a movie, and people donated money. And as far as I know, that has been shelved. So who knows, maybe one day we'll get our Little League World Series movie about Redland. But I just had to laugh when they did the coverage of the Redland Little League team, because these boys came from different areas around York County and the Redland area, because Redland really isn't a place. It's just the name that we call different towns. So Lewisberry, Goldsboro, Edders, Newburytown, Fairview Township, they're all under the umbrella of Redland. But the men from ESPN didn't know that. So when they looked on a map and they found out that the coach was from Lewisberry, they said, oh, wow, Lewisberry fielded an amazing team. Well, Lewisberry has about 300 people. So ESPN made it sound like we took a crop of boys from a town of 300 and turned them into superstars. And that's an amazing story, but unfortunately they did come from different towns under the umbrella of Redland, but they really came together. And I've never seen Williamsport just covered in people wearing Redland jerseys. The kids were sliding down the hill on the cardboard slides. It was amazing. People would get out of work early, leave school early to go see the boys. They were our hometown heroes that year. It was really amazing. I remember I was actually at the beach on vacation for the first time in a long time, and we'd come in early from the beach to watch all the games. And it was nice, you know, to see our little hometown do something. Did Lancaster ever field a team that made it that far? Sorry, I had to. It's home field advantage. I'm sorry. We're doing baseball analogy.
Okay, so naturally, we could go on, and this program could be several hours long.
Yeah,
But
we learned that on our last presentation.
it was great at the Redland Community Library. But obviously, you know, we want to talk to you at the end of the program. We'll certainly be able to field any questions on the live. And you know, please, if you love history, the local history, follow our 2 pages that we run, our groups, and lively chats, and people share pictures. And I think Brenda's a member of ours on the Liddit's side, so we and Donnie, of course, too.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great to talk about these kind of things. And as I said, I mean, this is the 3rd time we've done this program, and we really enjoy it. And one of the best parts, at least to me, is as I just said, you know, getting feedback and the ideas and the thoughts and the stories after the program for the attendees. So please follow our pages, and that's just about it. That is the end of the program. So yeah, do we want to turn it to questions or? Yes.
I had a question about the baseball team name. So York, it's kind of clear where we came up with Revolution, but when I look up the Barnstormers, I'm thinking 1920s guys on top of airplanes playing tennis. Where did Barnstormers come from?
So that's a great question. It had to do with the Amish tourism and barns and everything is the short answer. Years and years ago in the 20s, there was a baseball team in Lancaster called the Lancaster Red Roses, believe it or not, and they played at what's called Stump Field. And so yeah, that's the answer. Basically, just cashing in on the Amish tourism farms and people associate farms with that, so,
Okay.
yeah. Yes, sir.
I think arguably the west bank of the Susquehanna in York County, especially southern York County from the bridges south, is more hospitable to recreational and cabin activities. And there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that was an area that was shared both by Lancastrians and York Counties. That a lot of folks from Lancaster came over and built cabins at Long Level and south of Long Level. Has anybody ever really looked into that kind of settlement activity? It's just kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't really know a whole lot about that. I mean, that sounds like that would make sense for sure.
We'll put that in the next
Yeah.
presentation. So I would see us in October. Yeah, you're coming over using our shore.
Wildcat Falls was, of course, in Marietta, there was a ferry between the two, and there was a lot of recreation between Marietta and that part of the county.
Right, yeah, the other river town, yeah.
Southern part of York County always gets left out whenever people talk about York County, so I'll speak for that.
Yeah.
There was, and it's for the Scotch-Irish migration from Newcastle across southern Chester, southern Lancaster, southern York County, all the Scotch-Irish Presbyterians. There were at least 3 ferries south of Wrightsville that ran back and forth. And in the 18th century into the 19th century, there was a lot of traffic back and forth because they were all the same community. They were all Scotch-Irish Presbyterians back and forth, sharing ministers, families, and now the Amish are doing the same thing across the Norman Wood Bridge. So I think transportation had a lot to do with it. When ferries were the only way to get across, I think there was a lot more back and forth. There was even a covered bridge built that was, I think, in the 1830s, the longest covered bridge.
Yeah, they burn.
And well, I think I was thinking ice took it out, an ice storm. Anyway, it was destroyed. It's only around for about 2 years. But at that point, a lot more transportation. And after that, railroads, canals, the focus got, very different. Lancaster to Philadelphia and York County down to Baltimore. But I think that would be an interesting thing to look at is how transportation evolution affected the development of the 2 counties.
Okay, good to know.
Our next presentation.
We'll add it. Yes,
Got one for you.
okay.
The slate that became so famous down in the Delta region of York County, that same slate vein runs over into Lancaster County, but from what I understand, the slate in York County is still a better slate than what is in Lancaster County.
You got me again. I didn't know that. That's great.
The gentleman just said that York has superior slate, even though the slate vein runs into Lancaster County. Were you aware of that, Corey?
No. We'll get better soil.
And that's why red land is called red land, because we have red clay soil in York County. Every time we do this presentation, we get these amazing anecdotes in the question and answer period, and we have to explain that the presentation can only be so long. So now that we're going to be doing it for the 4th time, we should just redo the entire presentation with things that are suggested to us after. we
Yeah,
finish
so
the
you don't have to come to
presentation.
that one now.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, who told them that?
Yeah, when the first time we got together, literally, we had a long list of things that we could, it just, like I said, it just goes on and on, but how do you limit it to, 45 minutes? But yeah, sure, there is a lot.
I'm just hearing more things about how York is superior.
For do you have any sense of how these more York County over in Lidditz and over in Lancaster County, or do you have any sense about Lincoln Castrians coming over to York County? Can you talk about that?
Sure, I'll answer your first question. Sure, we see a lot of York Countyans come to Lancaster for a host of different events, whether it be the Fire and Ice Festival. We have a big 4th of July celebration in Lidditz. It's the 2nd oldest in the country. Just on and on. As far as Lancaster is coming to York, sure, I mean, passing through, yeah, stopping at different sites. Yeah, for sure, there's a lot, I hear it all the time, truthfully, yeah.
The slave makers came here, but they didn't last.
Slaymaker Lock
They,
from Lancaster,
well,
yeah.
they had an iron process.
Yeah, that's like the one,
It
okay,
lasted about 20 years, I think, and
okay,
I think all of them went back
oh,
before they passed on.
all right, yes, sir,
If you want to make you feel good,
please do.
Lancaster was first in York County before York County was. And if you look at some of the old deeds, they're over in Lancaster County if you want to find who owns the land. You couldn't come on this side of the Susquehanna. Well, what they did, whenever Lancaster was established, it was across the Susquehanna a little bit. Then you couldn't go through what is now York and Adams County because there was with an agreement with the Indians, you couldn't go over earlier than 1736. After 1736, the people from Lancaster could come over here. I know because my relatives were here then. And then all those people started out in 1736 until 1749 that established land here, farms, etc. All those deeds are over in the Lancaster County Historical Society and all that over there. So they owned the beginning of York County in Lancaster. And I think York was the 5th county that was developed in Pennsylvania, and it was right after Lancaster. That's the history.
Thank you, yeah.
So
Yeah.
you couldn't have York without, you can't have York unless you have Lancaster, because about half the titles are in Lancaster.
And does everyone know where Lancaster County came from? What county broke off? Chester, yeah, sure, yeah. Yes, sir.
Yeah, if you look at the Monocacy Road, which is the major road on the Great Wagon Road from Philadelphia down to Shenandoah Valley. Actually, you have to go to the Lancaster County History Center, where the road was developed when in York County, because it was part of Lancaster County at the time. So they actually had the mites and bounds of the road. When they surveyed the road over there, you can look at the original document of the Monocacy Road that goes basically from Wrightsville through York, through Spring Grove and Hanover, and then down to Monocacy, Maryland. So the mites and bounds are in an original document that are in the History Center.
Okay, so Stephen Smith just said, if you're looking at the Monocacy Road, that goes through York and down to Maryland, that you need to go to Lancaster to find the information about that.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Yes, Jamie.
So where do you think this like rivalry came from? Because it's kind of like this joke that like, like with Lancaster, competition. So what do you attribute to that?
Jamie wants to know where the rivalry between York and Lancaster counties came from.
I don't know the answer, but I learned something earlier this week. Our treasurer at the Historical Foundation, he's actually from Liverpool. And I was telling him about this program and he said, oh, the War of the Roses. I said, yes, exactly. And he said, that actually dates back to England, and I forget when, 1600, I think he said something. Lancashire and Yorkshire got into this big, conflict. And one of the things that, and I guess you should Google it too to learn the full story, is like a peace offering was roses in between. One was a white rose and one was a red rose. And so even back then, Lancaster, Lancashire was red, Yorkshire was white. So I thought it was pretty, it came full circle. Yeah.
The real story is that the people in Lancaster, when they went to the Susquehanna River, those that could read the sign that said the better land was over there, they went to Lancaster County. That's how it grew up.
So we just learned, if you could read the sign that said the better land is over there,
Yep.
you were smart enough to go over there to the better land. I do say though, it's funny, like East Shore, West Shore is like a rivalry with high school kids, they always say West Shore, West Shore. So I don't know if it's just you know, like they like to keep it going just for laughs, or if it really is a real rivalry.
I don't know, any other questions?
Thank you for that.
So much.
Thank you, Corey and Dr. for an awesome presentation. It was very entertaining. We learned tonight that Lancaster owns the river. But we're in a drought and you don't own the land. So actually York is creeping up on you and we're getting on land. So watch out. Our next presentation will be in September, the first Thursday. Samantha Dorn will be presenting on history of York. She's going to talk about predominant African-American sites that are current day parking lots. So it's paved over history, and she's got a great storytelling ability to talk about Black history in New York. So you better understand the place and the history when you go to different locations. So thank you very much, Nicole and the History Center, for being here. And thank you to everyone who tuned in online. Thank you. That's great.